Hello there, and welcome to my cloth industry tutorial for Dwarf Fortress. In this one, I'm going to explain why having a cloth industry is quite important, how to set it up, and how to set up dyeing of your clothes as well, so you have some nice colors going on. So first off, why is cloth industry so important? Well, the most obvious reason will be your dwarfs will be needing clothing. So over the course of the time, clothing will be destroyed, or you will need new clothing for babies that grow up, and you should really provide because naked dwarfs are unhappy dwarfs. So that's one obvious thing. The other less obvious thing is that certain containers, bags, can only be made out of cloth or leather, and leather production is even harder to automate than cloth, although I must say cloth production ain't that hard to automate. Leather would be way, way harder. So the gist of it is you want cloth for clothing and you want it for the construction of containers. There's also ropes that can be made out of cloth. Well, you could also use a chain wherever you could use a rope, but that's also another really useful thing because it's either chain or rope, and some things must be made with that. But yeah, those are the main reasons. So, how to get that stuff? The most obvious one would be pigtail farming. Every one of your settlements will start with pigtail seeds unless you have changed the starting rules, and you can plant that stuff during summer and autumn. Pigtail seeds will then be processed at the farmer's workshop via the process plants command into threads. These threads will then be processed into cloth at the loom. You don't need to configure the loom in any way. It will be automatically working. It's just working like the fishery where if there's anything to do, your dwarfs will automatically pick these jobs up. So in a similar vein, you can also utilize other crops, just like you can utilize the pigtail. So, surface crops like jute, cotton, or flax can also be processed at the farmer's workshop. So, it's definitely worth checking out if your environment has some of these. If you struggle finding out which plants these are, I've put down a helpful link in the description box leading to the Dwarf Fortress Wikipedia featuring all the different plant fiber bearing plants so you can check them out if there's any in your environment. You can even grow them by yourself by extracting seeds out of them and have either a surface farm that's quite dangerous, or you find that wonderful trick which allows you to farm that stuff underground. It's up to you. I just wanted to mention that there are a lot of plants up above that have similar qualities, just like the pigtails have. The second way of acquiring cloth that we can process would be silk gathering. Silk gathering is a little bit of a more risky thing. There are cave spiders and the like in the caverns below that produce that stuff. If you know where and how to gather that stuff safely, you will process that directly at the loom into a silk cloth, which can be then processed into clothing. Silk cloth is really good. It's lightweight, it's more powerful than most other fabrics, and offers even some protection for civilian dwarfs. So it's quite desirable, albeit the most risky way of getting yourself some clothing. The third method goes via livestock. If you happen to have sheep, alpacas, or llamas in your possession, you can shear them at the farmer's workshop. So here's the shear animals command. It's shearing the animals, spinning that stuff into thread, and then getting yourself over at the loom and get that. I don't know if it was thread or yarn, but you get the idea. These things, they are all the same. So shearing and spinning and making it into cloth. So all in all, livestock is a little bit more excessive as it has one work step more, but beyond that, it's also the very, very safe method, and you can also get extra rewards by slaughtering the animals and whatnot. So livestock cloth production is something to consider as well. So these are the three main methods of acquiring cloth, and now let's talk about dyeing. So dyeing is made at the dyer's shop. The dyer can dye cloth or thread, and then you can process these dyed clothing, dyed cloth pieces into more valuable clothing or other products. It's important to note that you can only dye the raw material and not the finished product. So dye powder is made at the quern or at a millstone, and the most accessible good for that would be the dimple cups. You can mill them into a blue powder dye, and then you can go for that. There's also three more different dye types that can grow on the surface level, and yet again there's a link down there in the description box leading you to these. And there's a nice little summary in the Dwarf Fortress Wikipedia. It's also worth mentioning that other trade caravans often happen to have dye powder as well in their roster, but it's a pretty costly thing, and if your dyer is not pretty talented, it might be even a bad deal, because there's two things to factor in when you dye clothing. The value of the dye itself and the skill of the dyer is also impacting the enhancing process. So the best dye is the self-grown and self-collected one, but luckily dimple cups are easily acquirable. Okay, so that sums up pretty much everything that I wanted to say. The clothier's shop is where you process all these items. Just wanted to skim on over that real quick. And beyond that, well, I hope that this covered all your questions to that topic. One last thing, storing your clothing is happening in bins, and you store the dye powder in bags, and that's that. I don't know, I think you can store dye powder in barrels too, but that would need some confirmation. I don't know if that's actually possible. So thanks for watching this one. Leave me a comment down below, leave me a thumbs up on that video, and consider subscribing. There's daily content like this coming up on my channel, and chances are you like the rest of that as well. You'll also find a link to the playlist to the other tutorials of mine for Dwarf Fortress in the description box, alongside with some support links to this channel, and I'd be delighted if you check them out. And a big thanks to all the supporters out there supporting the channel. I really, really deeply appreciate. So, enjoy, and catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.